Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, Ben summarizes the strip trials that were tested at our Fort Madison, Iowa test plot. See some Meristem full program results from fields we were on site for this summer. Hear Ben's advice on planting wheat after November 1st. And stick around for some spooky, corny jokes.
Hi, this is Joe Merschman. Welcome to Merschman Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have Ben, Dylan, and Lynn. And Ben's going to go into a little bit of some of the strip trial work we did on our Fort Madison, Iowa plot.
Yeah, we talked about it last week, and we talked about some of the trends that we were seeing when we were harvesting. We hadn't put the numbers together yet, but I do have the numbers with me, and we can throw what my little map here, I guess, suggests up on the screen so that guys can follow along and
this was
take
all
a little bit lower.
Fungicides and same hybrid, just a lot of different aftermarket treatments.
Yeah, so we've had Jason Batterson on before with FMC. Anybody that knows or talks farming with me quite a bit knows that I'm a pretty big fan of the Xyway product for at least to get through tassel from a fungicide standpoint. And he asked us to look at a couple other products, and obviously we were very interested in seeing how the Meristem full portfolio program worked as well.
Ben, you might tell them what type of equipment we have on our planter to deliver the Xyway product.
Yep. So we have the Precision FurrowJet system. So what that looks like, if guys aren't really familiar, it's an in-furrow system and a 3/4 inch off the row. So basically a FurrowJet has the ability to put product in the furrow or put them off in the wings, which are 3/4 of an inch off of each side of the seed opener. So the reason we like that is because Xyway has some seed safety issues, so we don't necessarily want to put it directly on the seed in the row, so we're putting that 3/4 of an inch away off of the seed. And then some of the insecticides, things like that, can go in furrow where they need to be the most effective.
Should caveat that when using it in the format that we do, if you use the LFR, the foam style, there's
Right.
not the seed safety, but when you're using it as a carrier, I guess, with a liquid program, we want to make sure that we're off the seed there.
Yep, so our planter is equipped to be able to apply some of these things, and I think what we had as a carrier for the entire program as a check was the Upshift C product from Meristem as well, which is basically a small dose of phosphorus and an enzyme to help uptake phosphorus as well. So as we're looking at the map of this trial, we basically have a front block or a front range and a back range of the trial. So the front range is going to be a non-fungicide, and the back range, everything had a full rate of the Adastrio fungicide. So when you're looking at my key and you see the AD, that means it's Adastrio. So for example, in our first trial, we have the full program, the full Meristem program, which means we had hopper throttle treated seed, we had a Revline early season, and harvest stretch home shield complete in with our post herbicide pass, and then we had at fungicide timing we would have had the Revline late season as well as the NKBS product from Meristem, and we had that actually in there twice. So the front range did not receive fungicide, the back range did receive fungicide. I think one of the things that is really interesting when we look at this data and you compare all of basically the untreated checks. So we had untreated checks, which is just Merschman's 2512 C-30 with absolutely nothing done to it. It was just planted. And the untreated check compared to the untreated check with a fungicide was worth 50 bushel an acre this year. Obviously you're not going to get that kind of response every year, but it was very, very consistent between that 45 to 53, 54 bushel an acre if you sat down and did the math between each one of them. But the fungicide was definitely something that really paid this year.
What fungicide did you use, Ben?
We used the Adastrio from FMC.
Okay.
So that is one thing that's interesting as you go through the trial work and you look at how we performed against each individual check. In every instance but one, which was the Meristem full season product, we did see positive yield gains. Now, whether or not they are positive return on investment style yield gains, some of them get pretty close to break even, but we did see positive results the way we wanted to. The plot, as we move further towards the west, the soil type does get a little bit on the lighter side, and we had a little bit of down corn in trial treatment 3 and 4, so that's kind of one of the things that explains why it may not have performed as well as the check on either side, but every other instance we saw positive return on, or positive yield. The hopper throttle, and compared to the checks, was probably the biggest return on investment, so just the hopper throttle itself, and then the hopper throttle with fungicide showed the highest return on investment. We had 196 bushel an acre, which would be 7 bushel yield advantage on either side of the check when you look at that setup. And then when you look at the hopper throttle with the adastrio, you're looking at a 261 bushel an acre compared to 240 and 246 on either side of it. So you're looking at potentially 18 to 21 bushel an acre compared to the fungicide check next to it. So I'll put the Excel file out there for anybody that wants to look at it and dive through it a little bit more. I'm always available to answer questions for anybody that has questions on why we set it up the way we did, or what we were seeing when we were actually out in the field. The only other thing that I wanted to mention on this one, treatment 13 and treatment 14, that just had the capture on it, for whatever reason was down really bad up against the east side of this trial work. I'm not sure why. I'm not blaming the capture at all. I think it had something to do with the soil, or where we had more like fusarium root rot or fusarium stalk rot, pardon me, because the corn was just starting to go down. So I wanted to have a few more data points on this for each individual check, but the standability of the corn was, it wasn't perfect. So we were just hurrying to get through the data as much as we could, because we were 145 mile an hour wind, storm, rain event away from having a bunch of down corn, which is what we're seeing out in the industry right now.
Ben, didn't you say that this Xyway by itself, you could tell?
Yes.
To the row?
Yes.
Compared to the untreated?
Yes. When we were harvesting both, well, especially on the non-fungicided, I stopped the combine, opened the window, and yelled at Dylan. I said, write this down. I said, whatever treatment that was, the treatment was absolutely standing perfect, and either check on either side, the corn was starting to get mixed up a little bit. So that one was definite, because I didn't even know what it was at the time. We were just harvesting corn. Yeah,
and the problem with a lot of this corn going down is poor roots. You know, basically stock rot started a long time ago, and the Xyway definitely prevented that and made the roots just a little bit healthier, going into even without a fungicide, a second foliar fungicide. So. Right. Some interesting things. Of course, we had all that rain in July, like everybody else, that set up the root problems that we have and what we're seeing right now. And of course, the last few weeks have been, well, last week or so, 10 days have been really windy, taking a toll on the corn. Right. And if everybody recalls, if you're watching Cup of Joe, we predicted this was going to happen before it happened. In other words, we were out in the fields and we were seeing problems with the roots, and said, get this corn out as fast as you can.
Correct. I've talked to a handful of guys that are putting reels on their combines, and it's not the most fun conversations to have.
It's a slow process, and then very hard on the combines too.
Right. So that is that. I had a couple other things that I wanted to or that I had promised on previous Cup of Joe episodes. That field that we shot the Cup of Joe episode in, that was in my field where they mowed down the path to get to the Xyway, or the path to get to their telephone poles. I've had guys asking how that field did, because they were surprised with how green and healthy that corn looked at the time. This entire farm was harvested at 15% moisture, and we are in the field on the west hand side, 2 fields down. So there's a red stripe that goes through the middle of that rectangular field, or that square looking field, and we were sitting directly in the far back corner of that. So the corn that would have been around where we were sitting yielded somewhere between 278 and 300 bushel an acre. So for a treated versus untreated check, we're probably looking anywhere from 50 to 70 bushel. I don't have as applied maps because of the equipment that we were using to get perfect analysis, because basically what we did is we fungicide we did the full Meristem program with 2 fungicide passes against basically a completely untreated check, and the untreated checks were always on the outsides of the fields because that's just the way we set it up. But I think you're realistically looking anywhere from a 50 to 70 bushel yield bump, but you can take a look at the map and the legend there and see what the differences look like on that. Very, very happy with the program. I would do it again in a heartbeat.
To give viewers some context, I mean, I think, not to say anybody farmed it bad or anything before, but when you first took that over and you and I were discussing fertilization options and what to do, about as close as you can get to a blank slate versus just taking something out of sod as far as that goes. So, and that's been what, 2.5 years ago, 3 years?
This is the second year this is the second time we've had corn on this crop. So it's been 4 years ago.
Correct. So, I mean, to be honest, to go from
single digit P and K,
correct, to being able to raise 207, because it's not, once again, no offense, not to be offensive here, but we're not looking at flat black prairie style soils here. This is some of the transition ground off south of 16. Obviously, if people can see, that's trees. You're farming the nooks and knobs, so it's extremely impressive to have those kind of numbers. I mean, that's some stuff that we plan on seeing on the flat black prairie irrigated stuff. So,
yep. Next year, I'm probably not going to leave the untreated checks going around the outside of the field, because the field ended up averaging like 238 or something like that, but there was a lot of 290, 300 bushel corn in the middles. So it's amazing how fast those 190 to 200 bushel end rows start pulling things down. So that is one field that we had. We had another Meristem check. Basically, when you're looking at this picture, we have the early season post so this is on a soybean field. We have the early season program, and then we have the full season program. So the early season program is in between the 2 dots on the right hand side, and then the full season program goes from the red dot to the further to the north, I guess, as you're looking at it. So there's some with and some without. I don't have a perfect way to give you a bushel per acre. This is just a nice visual on what we were seeing. Anything in the greens is 115 bushel soybeans, give or take, and anything in the reds is in that 90 bushel an acre range. So we definitely saw some positive return on investment, I would say, or some positive higher yielding situations when we were using the full program, and this would be an irrigated soybean field. But we were seeing some very, very nice high yielding soybeans with the full program on it. The spot in the middle that is blue, and if you look at my legend on the right hand side, I purposely set it at 80 bushel an acre, but the spot in the blue is sandy. It's a sand knob in the middle of the field. So if you draw your line across, you can definitely see where the yield was, where that product was definitely making yield. And then the last one that I had to share, and we'll share another couple. Lynn's got one, and I got another one from Western Illinois for next week. I just don't have the maps set up perfectly for it yet. But how this field is, this is another Meristem trial, and we are looking at anything south of the red dot. Would have had just regular fungicide. From the red dot to the next blue dot to the north would have been the full Meristem program. Then we have a check in the middle that would have been fungicide only, and then from there to the north is the full Meristem program again. So when we were looking at this, and I dived down just to be as fair as possible, to dive down the center strip where the soil types are very similar, you're looking at 255 bushel corn. When you go directly north under the same slice, you are looking at 271 bushel per acre. That is a positive return on investment for using the full program. If you look, and if I was being a little bit more unfair and I was comparing to the south, you can just see a lot more purples, which is less than 250 bushel an acre, and I'm imagining the spread would go further. What I liked about this field when we were comparing and looking at things, the highs were just as high in the program versus the not program, but the lows were definitely lower where it was a fungicide only program. So kind of interesting, but that's one of the things that the guys at Meristem will talk about is it's not always about getting your highs higher. Sometimes it's about the defense mechanism and reducing the stress to bring your lows up, and that's where you can see some of your overall field gains. So had some pretty pictures to share this week, but kind of wanted to talk about it and share with everybody.
Dylan, any additional updates on how our seed fields are coming in and seed size? I know we covered it last week a little bit, but do you have any additional comments to add from a week ago?
Yeah, for the most part, guys are getting to the finish line. It's our southern growers now that are trying to finish up either their double crop production or some of their late Nashville's like 4.7s, those type of products. But germs are still coming back really good. The lot germs keep coming back extremely strong. So there's not much, just it's going the right direction that we want it to.
And then we want to talk just a little bit about wheat. I know some farmers may be scratching their heads. I've got everything out. Can I plant wheat? And Ben, what's your advice now? We're November 1st now, and I'm going to plant wheat. So, Ben, what's your advice if you're planting wheat after November 1st?
Yeah, we were talking before filming, what are my different cutoffs for when to plant wheat. Here locally and even moving further south, my actual cutoff date, and it kind of depends on the weather, is like that November 15th time frame. It's very hard to get seed to germinate when we have these really, really cool soils. So typically that's my cutoff. But when we have guys that are planting wheat, which the soil temperatures are in the 60s looking forward, my advice is we just need to push the population up a little bit higher. So when I'm talking the first half of October, I'm in that 100 or 1.2 million to 1.5 million seeds per acre is what I'm looking for in drilled rows. 7.5 inch or 10 inch rows, and then once we get to the second half of October, I'm in that 1.5 to 1.8, and once we get into the November time frame, I'm kind of in that 1.8 to 2 million seeds per acre. Kind of depends on conditions, how much moisture is in the soil, how obviously ground temp, things of that nature, and what the next 2-week, 3-week forecast looks like. Because what we're trying to do, the later that seed germinates, the less tillering that we are going to get from the fall tillers, and those are usually the most productive. So what we're trying to do is get more main heads, because you're not going to get the warmth, you're not going to get the growth to get the really productive tillers that happen in the fall. The tillering that happens in the spring is good, but it isn't near as productive. You don't normally get the same size heads on those spring tillers. So
still time to plant wheat. And we've had some double crop yields come in too. I had one called in, local grower, raised 130 bushel patent wheat and followed up with 41 bushel double crop. So the math works on that one, I think.
Yep, and I had a guy call in that was very similar for the top end on his hyper early wheat, and I think he rolled across the scales at 49.
49. Yep.
That's absolutely for the amount of dry finish that we have. Doesn't it surprise you that the double crops were as good as they were? Because even on our own acres, Dad was pleasantly surprised. I was figured we'd be picking 20 to 25 bushel an acre double crops, and there was some in the high 30s, low 40s for field averages. So
now the hyper early with a double crop system in the north works, and of course down south they got more time, so double crop always works down there if they provide it, you get a little rain. So anyhow, that's all positive. And then I wanted to kind of close out. I know you hear us talk about the 112 day and how excited we are, and I just did a quick analysis of the plots we had in about the middle of the week, and 75% of the plots that we had that hybrid was in was either first, second, or third. And so I was real pleased with that. But then I've been watching the first trials, and if you go up into our northern country, the 106 day is just as dominant.
Yeah. Yep, when you're looking at northeast Iowa, west central Illinois, northern Illinois, the 106 day has shown up extremely well. The 111 day has shown up extremely well. The 108 day, it seems like it's funny because the 108 day is always just a spot or two behind the 106 day. So those are all awesome products, have gotten really good feedback out of the sales managers in Northeast Iowa, West Central Illinois, Northern Illinois. Our products are doing exactly what we would prescribe them to do.
So definitely plant the package, it's going to spread your risk out on pollination and, disease and roots and all the other things that can go wrong if because normally speaking, that's the smartest thing to do is to plant a package. And we have hybrids that you can plant a package. You don't just need to choose one. You can plant 2 or 3, 4 Merschman hybrids and you're going to have good results.
Yep.
100%.
Okay, well, that brings us to the corny jokes. And I know, officially Halloween was yesterday, but I did run across a couple of good ones that I want to tell you just, to mop up, okay? But before I go into that, I'll just talk to you about one. So I have 3 today. Why was the math book crying? Why was the math book crying? It had a lot of problems, okay? Okay.
Math
Remember
problems.
those back high school days, Okay, anyhow, why are ghosts such good cheerleaders? Why are ghosts such good cheerleaders? Because they have a lot of spirit. Yeah. And the last one, what do you tell a hungover ghost? What do you tell a hungover ghost? You need to cut back on the booze. Makes sense. Anyhow, thanks for watching today. We hope that harvest is going well for you, if not completed. We hope your family is safe and healthy, and we'll see you next week. Take care.